We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
You got to have the why, and we know our why. So
you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Millions and millions of people have done this already. You can get help, you can get a roadmap, you can save a lot of time, money, and frustration. Welcome to the Value Add Podcast with K&K.
Hey everybody, Value Add with K&K. Crystal and Kenny here. Just want to say thank you so much for the support, for listening, the comments, everything. Keep it up. We'll keep going as long as we can.
And if you like what you're listening to, like what you're watching, tell your friends about it, leave us a review, maybe even give us 5 stars.
We love those.
That's how we can grow and continue to bring you guys value and spread the word.
Thanks, guys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Value Add Podcast with K&K. Today we're doing a little off-site chat again with Kyle Hanson here with Let's Get Clicks. So we wanted to do this today because Kyle does this thing called Coffee with Kyle. So Kenny doesn't drink coffee, so he kind of screwed that one up.
Guys.
So
We can do kombucha next
yeah.
So we thought about kombucha with Kenny. That we didn't do that though. So we're here at Nolita Hall and want to talk to Kyle about all things marketing. So if you're a business owner, we kind of want to talk to you about what we've been implementing and what you should be implementing too in your business as far as marketing goes.
All right.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.
So what is it like, Kyle? Somebody's meeting with you, coffee with Kyle. I know you're promoting it, you're meeting with people. So what's the expectation? What are they going to get out of it?
Well, so I know it sounds maybe kind of silly, and maybe I'm making a bigger deal about it. But do you guys ever see? This is kind of how I look at it. You guys ever see? What was that show? Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon in the 70s?
Yes,
okay.
I know what you're talking
Sorry,
about.
I know I always do this. I always like name old shows. Like you guys like Donna Reed, you know?
Rocco knows it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So,
I've heard of neither of those.
Yeah. But it's this thing where he comes down and he wants to do good deeds and stuff and everything else. And so the coffee thing is obviously, I'm a business owner and entrepreneur, and I get business out of this. But really, at the end of the day, I place an ad, a Facebook ad, and it says, hey, I'll meet you for coffee anywhere in San Diego. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. You tell me about your business, and I will come up with a marketing plan. And I'm not going to pitch you. I won't close you. I don't even have a presentation. I'm just literally going to just let out exactly what I think would be a good idea. And so in the process, I've met a lot of really cool, interesting business owners, people who do different types of therapies, guys who sell suits, and just a lot of different types of businesses. And a lot of times you find out that all you're really doing is you're coming up with a marketing plan, but you're really just selling these business owners their own business. So you're giving them you're breathing in a new life to their idea of why they started a business and what they're selling. So like a guy who sells suits, you're like, so who's your customer? And they say, well, guys who are 25 to 40 who like looking cool.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Yeah, but that's it's kind of boring, right? So, but what are you really selling? You're not really selling thread that fits your body a certain way. You're selling confidence. You're selling ability, image. You're selling getting the job. You're selling talking to people and being confident in who you are. You're selling, all of those things. And so these guys always leave with, if we don't sign up and work with me, they always leave with a new perspective. And I always keep communications open with them. And again, I never pitch them, I never close them, never squeeze them. But the whole idea is that they know who their customer is and they know what their product is. And a lot of times it's different than what you think it is. Like commercial real estate or mortgage. I learned in mortgage, I learned that, right? You're not selling a refinance. You're selling the pool. You're selling being debt free. You sell the wind in your hair, not the car itself. Yeah. So, that's essentially it at the end of the day. It's, and sometimes that means Facebook ads. Sometimes it means Google ads. Sometimes it means a website design. Sometimes it just means a free consultation where you switch your idea on who your customer is and how you communicate with them. So.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, especially now, I think a lot of people are looking at a lot of maybe their competitor or businesses online or what's going on, and they're not in the realm of, it's funny because you're meeting them in person, but you're talking about digital mortgage and this, but how you got to them was probably through some type of ad where you landed right in front of their face and they took you up on it. But I think people these days is people are just, I think, sitting back. It was funny, I was watching this morning, and they're just so worried about how to get started and want to be perfect and this and that. And sometimes it's like, maybe start throwing some shitty ads out and testing. Like when we went into the commercial real estate, you're like, we couldn't even really find an ad to like copy or steal. As Gary Vee says, just steal somebody else's and make it you, not them. And so I think a lot of people they don't really know what it is. And when we did the interview with Billy Jean, and he was like, no, I'm a 5th grader, no, I'm a 5th grader, no, I'm a 5th grader, and break it down, he's telling Crystal, you're doing an ad the way that you think you ad. You're like, yo, I just want to buy 25 to 40 that wants to look cool. It's like, no, that's not really why a guy is going to buy a suit.
Sure.
Like you said, it's the image, it's the confidence, it's, I mean, in my industry, I'm not going to go wear a suit. But some people that might work downtown and they're an attorney, they're wearing a suit because they want to have that image. If you're working in La Jolla and you're a real estate agent, you might wear like flip-flops and a shirt, you know? So when you meet with people, what do you, because somebody's watching this, they're doing no marketing or barely any marketing.
Or they've done some posts and nothing happens. Right? Or they did an ad and they're like, Facebook ads don't work or Google ads don't work, they're just a waste of money.
And I think now, maybe you don't know, but now it's not working because you consistently haven't tried it. Because you would tell somebody, the people that are doing ads that are in your competition that's working is because they didn't give up. They didn't go, well, I spend $5,000 and I did it myself and I tried, and they did it because they figured out what ad worked, because they kept going and going and going and going, and then you figured out just like you did.
Yeah, like on our last episode, if I would have quit after I wasted $10,000 or probably, like, it's embarrassing, like 100 hours, right? If I would have quit then,
you wouldn't be here.
Well, I wouldn't be anywhere. My business would have failed. I wouldn't be doing this. I would have been out that money and that time, and I'd have nothing to show for it.
Well, it's just like learning a sport or something. I mean, you don't go take lessons, tennis lessons for 6 months and go like, I'm not an expert, so I quit. This thing sucks. It doesn't work. And that's even for us, what I've been kind of more looking at even now that we're running Facebook ads or doing the Google ads is like, okay, there's a couple of things. If I'm not getting the return that I want, either I suck at selling or there's something off on my ads. Or, there's like these things that you kind of have to figure out, these little details, because there's a lot of psychology behind it as well.
100%.
That maybe we're just not reaching that person, or maybe we're not getting to the lead fast enough, or maybe when we get the lead on the phone, we're not closing them properly. So there's just a lot of issues around it, that it's not like you try it a couple times and it just doesn't work. It's like you got to keep trying different things and pivoting and trying to perfect and get better at your craft.
And something that's worked 6 months ago or a year ago, or maybe there's an industry trend and a change, or maybe somebody's doing similar ads that you don't even notice. I mean, that happened to me even in, when I owned my IT company. Was I had this ad and it was killing it, and it was just running and running, and everyone was clicking and everyone was converting, and I was getting customers. And then I noticed, a couple weeks too late, I'm kind of like, what's going on? Why aren't we getting calls? What's the deal? And I noticed that I had a competitor or two that were copying a similar format to mine, right? And I wasn't paying attention to that, because you look at your ads, but rarely do you go in and see what's anybody else doing, other than when you first start out or when there's a problem. So, you realize that somebody kind of one-upped my ad a little bit, right? Maybe they have to say the same thing I said, and maybe they did it a little bit better, or maybe they said the same thing, but they said it first, right? And then I say it below and I look like a poser, even though it's my damn ad, right? So that could totally be it too. So there's a million things, and you always have to be looking and refining and everything else at 100%.
What do you think, we can all talk about our individuals, but when you're sitting down and talking to people, because now you're just focusing on marketing, like you're just like, I want to help you grow your business, whether it's through Google, Facebook, maybe YouTube, whatever, and you're doing them all. You're saying, this is what I'm doing. What do you think you're finding people that, let's say somebody isn't even doing anything, what do you think what's the big thing you're finding where the struggle is, or why they won't even get started?
Why they don't want to get started?
Yeah, why do you think, what it is?
Honestly, this is something that I'm working to overcome, not only in my business, but developing a strategy to help other businesses overcome it too. So a lot of times it has to do with lack of faith in somebody you don't know, or lack of faith in Google or Facebook or the internet, right? It's, you know, internet ads don't work for me. They don't work for my industry.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, and it's a common thing. And you're like, you know, they say, well, yeah, I ran Facebook ads or I ran Google ads, and they didn't work, therefore things don't work. That's like, but it's like saying, if you swing a bat at a ball and you don't hit it, bats can't hit balls. That's not true, right? And if that's true, that this doesn't work in your industry, then how come I can go find tons of companies in your industry doing the same thing? What makes them special? Are they better than you? Are they taller than you? Are they smarter than you? Probably not. The difference is that they're doing it and they're trying and they're making good decisions. So there really isn't much of an industry that can't benefit in some way, shape, or form from marketing. And if you don't market, nobody's going to know who you are.
Because when somebody hires you, you're going to go, the first thing you're going to do is go in and you're going to start looking at their competitors. You're going to build ads and see what competitors are good at it, what they're using, because you know what's working and using, and you're going to go, hey, this is what your competitors are. And do you find most people that are, when you meet with, do they know there's a competitor doing it and it's working?
Sometimes. A lot of times they don't really, they just know that other people are doing something and they're not doing it, or other people are doing well and they're not. And you know, one of the hardest things is to get over, to uncover and to get past like excuses and reasons why. Because you know, starting your own business, that's your whole thing. I mean, you like pull this thing out of you and it's painful. It's like a child. A lot of times people have, you know, awful bratty 4-year-olds and they make excuses for why that is, or they don't want to believe it because it's of you. It hurts, right? Yeah. So when you realize that your business is not doing well, a lot of people protect that. So you have to get past that in a way that's you know, sensitive, but at the same time doesn't enable them to keep believing this false belief, right?
Also, marketing is just a completely separate side of your business. So just because you can run a business doesn't mean that you know how to market a business. It doesn't even mean that you even can begin to understand it, because honestly, I mean, we've already talked about this before, but I've never really been big on marketing. So I am that person that is a true skeptic, because I just don't have that vision.
Sure.
Like, I can walk into a, you know, dumpy apartment or house and say, oh my gosh, I can see what this could be, but I can't look at my business and go, oh, I can see these ads and how that could really bring in business. So it's hard to kind of get beyond that. There has to be a little bit of faith, like you said, in the process.
And patience and
investment.
Investment. And the thing is, I think at the end of the day, it's like if you would have come into my IT business, you could have run the day-to-day operations better than I could have, right? So everyone has different skills and talents, and you know, personally, I prefer to live in kind of this. I was just talking to Sunshine about this yesterday. Live in this you know, kind of area where I'm coming up with ideas and thinking about things and solving problems for other businesses. But some of the day-to-day stuff of like my business, like I'll get something in from the city and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what this is, and I can't shift that gear. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in the pile that's getting taller and taller. And now Sunshine's aboard to help me with that because the pile's getting too tall. And she's really good at that stuff, and I'm not.
Way to go, Sunshine.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody needs a little sunshine.
Everyone needs a little sunshine on their bills.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that's the thing at the end of the day is, you know, you have your skills and abilities, and you're very talented in what you do, and I mean, it's evident. And you're taking on this new persona and this new thing too, and that's it's not easy, I'm sure, right? Because there's so many things you have to learn.
Well, when you have to deal with this guy, then you just do it.
Well, you
you're
have
like,
to.
okay, I have no choice.
Yeah. No, it's Kenny wants to do marketing, and you're like, well, we're going to do marketing because Kenny's excited about it, and that's one of his big talents.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think for you guys, if we talk about like, because you guys have, because my business is more regulated, so we haven't really dove into it. You guys have kind of taken the leap on the commercial. I mean, Crystal, you guys have been marketing for how many months now, probably?
Is it even 6 months yet?
Maybe not quite.
I don't think it's quite.
Because there's a slow
months,
start, and now it's getting more and more.
It takes a while too. I mean, that's the other thing that people should know is like there's some homework up front that you need to do. But like you said, it was like you should do this because it's going to save you money and it's going to get you to the goal more quickly when you really give it some thought.
Yeah.
And then also too to like revisit it.
Yeah. Well, we're at a mark right now where we mean, that's one thing Sunshine and I are working on a lot, is taking what we've had, given it 6 months, looking at, or less than that, looking at the data, and you know, kind of rehashing the whole thing. So we'll have new ads, we'll have new landing page copy, new layouts, and we're going to A/B test and see what we can do to beef it up from there.
So with you guys, because I think it would be helpful for people to hear this, commercial real estate is one where you could have said it doesn't work because literally, I'm not saying nobody's doing it, but it's pretty a vacant space of people doing advertising. So you were trying to find stuff and like, wow, there was really not much.
There aren't a lot of competitors that are doing what you're doing.
The well was pretty empty. There wasn't like, hey, we got a lot of stuff to work here. So when people make excuses, you could have really made an excuse like, hey, there's nothing here. Maybe we should just do it, because if nobody's doing it, that must mean it's not working. So you guys are, let's just call it 6 months into this, and I know it's a slow start and it starts to build up. Where are you guys at as far as how many ads are you running, right? How much are you probably spending on ads right now?
I think we have it capped at just $1,000 a month.
And then Crystal, let's talk about what type of people you were going for, right? What type of customer you're going, and what do you feel based on, you know, what type of ads, how much you spending, and how consistently, and what were you thinking you're hoping to get out of that meeting? Not just close leads, but what type of people you're hoping to talk to. Like, if you've gotten 100 leads, have they all been crap? Have you had like 50% great conversations? Like,
no, so it's been a mix.
It's
been a mixed bag. So Kyle can really speak to how many ads and targeting and all that, because I really don't know.
So let's talk about that first. How many ads are you running right now? Let's start there.
I think we are, we just placed some new ones, but I think there's probably 4 campaigns, I'd say in total, maybe, 8 different ad groups, different categories.
Something like that, yeah.
And then what kind of ads are made up of? Are we talking video, content?
Right now for Google, they're all text ads.
Okay.
So for Google search, I think that video and things of that nature would be a different channel than what we're doing.
It's more the Facebook, Instagram.
It's more Facebook, Instagram, things like that, blog posts. You know, you can always do image ads in certain places, but for Google search, we're trying to capture people who are looking for multifamily, you know, apartment loans, things like that, self-storage, gas station loans, interest-only building loans, etc. So it's a real targeted thing. So you're looking for people to type in a handful of phrases and then some variations of that. And then from there, you know, they get the most relevant ad. If they say interest-only apartment loans, then we try to give them an ad that says interest-only apartment loans and has factors that are based on that. And one of the things that we tried to do in the beginning, and the jury's still out, it's probably a 50-50 type response, but is rather than just do what everybody else is doing, which is list, you know, like the rates and this and that, it's trying to find a way to connect to somebody to make somebody go, okay, these are real people, because that's kind of how I respond to ads, right? So when you say, if it can be done, Crystal's team will close it. You have a name in there, you have kind of a personal message, and that separates the ad from some of the other ads, right? And I think that we're probably capturing people that we wouldn't ordinarily capture. And, you know, we may be alienating people that we normally might click on a more, like a boring ad, you know, and it's, on some of those, it's hard to kind of tell exactly who's what. So, you know, you're always doing a variety of ads and trying things out and promoting the ads that are doing well and demoting the ads that aren't. And then still trying to go through and decide if this ad's not doing well, why? Not just demote it, but maybe it's something in the verbiage. Maybe I can create a new ad that's
could just be a tweak, like a minor tweak.
Could be a tiny little tweak. Maybe,
and honestly, I mean, as far as the
what's your results?
The results that we're getting, as I've probably gotten maybe 6 total people that want to actually move forward. So I get other calls of people that maybe I can't help.
How many leads do you think total you've gotten?
Ooh, that'd be a Kyle thing.
Yeah,
but
I could look it up after.
But one thing, like for example, is that we constantly, like all once in a while, check in with Kyle and go, hey Kyle, I'm getting a lot of leads, or I'm not getting a lot of leads. Hey, for example, recently, I think the biggest one that we're trying to overcome right now is other mortgage brokers calling me thinking I'm a lender. So that's something that we got to kind of work on, is that make sure people know that I'm a mortgage broker. So if you don't want to talk to a mortgage broker, then I'm not a bank. So that's one thing that we got to get through. But I probably had 5 actual good leads. One guy just hasn't moved forward on anything. One guy we did move forward, but he didn't qualify. One guy we have moved forward on, and he's going to close. And then another one we just closed a couple weeks ago, our first lead from a Google ad that actually started out being like looking for an apartment loan, but we ended up refining her industrial building instead.
Okay.
And we closed that. So I would say right now we're probably at a break even with that as far as what we've invested into it, and there's just more tweaking that needs to happen. But the fact that I even have leads that are viable that we can close, I'm a little bit of a different business. So like, for example, with Kyle, with his IT business, he has a lot of small transactions. For me, one transaction I could make, you know, anywhere from $5 to like probably $50,000. But let's say it's maybe 5 to 30 on average. So I don't really need to close that many deals. Of course, I'd like to close more, but my thinking is I'll probably get less leads than other service-based business or businesses that are selling small stuff.
Tons less. And the thing is, I mean, we even are stopping at, you know, on average like $1,000 ad spend, because that's about how many people are searching for it at the end of the day. You know, and I mean, if we were to win 100% of all the clicks, you know, then obviously we could beef up that ad spend, but that just doesn't happen. You're never 100% of all the impressions and all the clicks. But yeah, based on that, I mean, we've beefed it up and we haven't hit those targets. And so that's what you do. You tweak the ad spend and you make sure that, you know, it's not about just spending the money. It's about making sure that you get something qualified.
Right.
And you know, if you get to a point where if we wanted to, I mean, I could, if you wanted to, Google will let you spend as much money as you want on stuff, but you won't get any more return because you're just going to get unqualified people at a point. And so, you know, we can widen out our ratio again, or our radius again, because we went in San Diego and we ran a bunch of ads, and I mean, there's only a handful of people who were searching in San Diego for multifamily, you know, apartment loans. They either have their person or whatever, and the volume was so low that we could not get enough leads, so we expanded a bit. And we start there, and then we can expand some more, and we can also find some areas that aren't working well and fix those, and then work on rewording our ads to knock out brokers.
You know, I think a lot of people, like Chris is at the point where this is a good conversation, is she's been, let's just say 6 months. It's probably not a true 6 months, because when you get going, the momentum hasn't really, I feel like the momentum in the last 2 months is really where it's been happening, because I see the leads and this. And the cool thing is like Crystal, you're saying, is a lot of your leads and deals close. You might close them in the next, you know, month or two, but they could be good commissions. So then you start making profit, which, you know, anybody would tell you in marketing, if you really started 6 months ago and you're ramping up, especially for your kind of business where it's difficult and it's not quick. And if you're going to be profitable, any marketer would be like, this is awesome. I mean, you would know that. So I think a lot of people here, this is where they start, you know, getting discouraged. It's like, well, I spent this much in time and I didn't make, you know, 50 grand back. Kyle, what do you think, based on like Crystal's business, how much longer would you say, hey, we got this and that? Would you say another 6 months is we should be at a point where we're really moving and grooving and really understanding when we put these type of ads out, what we're getting back? Like, what are you going to tell somebody typically the time is from meeting and getting going, what they typically could think to really start seeing some momentum?
I mean, it really depends on the industry. I mean, I think this is probably a very rare case, and there aren't very many commercial mortgage companies out there that, you know, specialize in multifamily and things like that, right? So, I mean, if you guys were a dentist or a law office or a mortgage company, for that matter, there are lots of predictable statistics and you know, the amount of leads that you should get, and then so you have an industry average, and then from there you kind of tweak it, right? So, if this were a dental practice or a plumber or a computer repair company or something like that, you could see some really good results and close transactions and everything the first month with a, you know, pretty easily positive ROI by, you know, the end of the first month or the second month, pretty consistently, if you do it right. And depending on the transaction amount too, and how long the deal process is. So if it's somebody, if like you're selling airplanes, you know, you run Google ads for a year or more before you see an ROI, right?
So all the higher priced you go per item is the longer it's going to take for you to really.
Yeah, it's the least amount of, well, searches have a lot to do with it too, right? I mean, you know, if there were 1,000 searches or 1,000 people looking, qualified people looking for a commercial mortgage broker, Then we have a lot of data to play with. We have lots of ways to tweak things and everything else. But because the transaction length is long, because the search volume is low, you have to really play with those numbers. And sometimes it takes longer to figure out what to do. So I think at this point, we went through a couple revisions of ad copy and really kind of drilled down on like who these people are and what the difference between the two products are, because although I've done standard mortgage in my life, this is different. So I don't know what the rates are. I don't know what's good, what to brag about. Like if you say, my rates are 4 and 1/8, I'm like, is that good? And you're like, no, that's terrible. Then you're like, well, then we won't mention that, right? It's something that, because people might have the wrong idea. Maybe 4 1/8 is a standard rate, but everyone else is underselling it in the beginning and then changing it. So maybe that's not something we brag about, although maybe that's fair, and I don't know if that's depending on what it is, but maybe that's a fair rate. But that's not something you want to put out front. So these are the types of things you sometimes figure out after you run a campaign a while. Sometimes it's good that you've had a handful of leads, and although I can see who converts, I don't necessarily, I can't keep track of how many of those people are like closed deals or what part of the process they're in. So there's always, meetings that you have to have afterward and kind of talk about, okay, so now that we've had a good amount of people, how many of those people are viable, and what are some of the guys that aren't, and then we figure out why. So like I said, mortgage brokers is one, so we have to figure out what verbiage we want to put in. And I think we did some of it already, but
we did some, yeah. But I still think there's always some confusion around it, because even borrowers will call me and say, "Are you a broker or are you a lender?"
Yeah.
So I think that there's always that kind of ambiguity there, because people also are not that educated about loans in general and how they work, even though they have loans.
And it's good. You have sometimes you have a conversation with somebody that could lead to a loan just because it is a small thing and they like you and your personality, and they go online and look you up and you have all this other stuff. Question for you, Kyle, is when you're meeting with people and they're using Google AdWords, let's just say, and they're not having success, are you typically diving in and asking them certain questions about who's running the ad, how they're running the ad, maybe why it's working or not? Can you pretty much, if somebody's not having success and they feel like, I got a competitor and he's doing well and I just don't know why we're not, whether he has a company doing it or he's doing it, can you pretty much dissect, if they hire you, dissect pretty quickly and find out why they're just spending money and it's just not working? Is it pretty black and white?
It can be, yeah, absolutely. So, I have a client, he's in the junk removal business, right? And so, he was running Google ads, and, I was helping him with a website, and he's a cool guy. We've become friends. So I'm not like I'm not one of those guys where if I know you're doing Google ads, I'm just like, I'm going to get those ads, right? I'm going to get that business. It's if you're happy where you are, then that's cool, right? And so he kind of he didn't want to shake anything up because he liked the guy he was working with. He didn't want to hurt his feelings or whatever, and that's fine. And then one day he was talking to me about some of his numbers, and I said, okay, so this is kind of roughly what it is. And I said, well, just do this. Go into your account and look at these metrics and these numbers and tell me how many conversions you're getting and things like that, because he doesn't know how many people are coming from ads, how many people are finding him on Google or on Maps or on Yelp. So he looked, and I was like, how many conversions, excuse me, do you have? And he said, oh, I don't know. I don't see any, and they're not tracking it. So the thing is if you're not tracking, you can't always get every single piece of information, from a Google ad, if if they've been a closed deal or not necessarily, depending on the system you're using. But you can at least know how many people converted. So if you're going to spend $2,500 a month or whatever, you should at least know how many leads you got and how many people performed the action you want them to perform, whether that's make a phone call or whether that's fill out a lead form or put a product in the cart or whatever it is that you count as a conversion. You should at least know that. So if he's paying a company to do that and they're not even tracking that, then that would tell me that they probably don't even care at all, right? So the setup is just as important of how tracking and setup is just as important of putting out a correct ad to the right, trying to find the right person. Yeah, I think if you care about your job, you're going to spend the time writing the right ads, and you're never right. Like I said, just like swinging a bat, you're never right the first time, right? You may have some good ideas, you may have some things, but a lot of times, after a handful of months or after you run a campaign for a while, you sit down with the client, in this case you, and say, okay, this is kind of what we have right now. Can you give me any other data, in regard to commercial mortgage that can help me write a better ad, or that can help me speak to the customer and create, if possible, an emotional connection that makes them pick you, right? And then on the landing page, when they get to the landing page, is there anything, if you were a potential borrower, is there anything that that you could put on there that would encourage them to perform your action and become a conversion? Is there anything that would deter them from doing that? Is there something maybe that they wouldn't like? And so sometimes you can't think of that in your initial, when you first launch something, because you just don't know until you have data. So that's kind of the idea.
It's kind of an evolution. I mean, the other thing too, I was going to say is that, at least I'm at a point now where I know that marketing does work and people make a lot of money off of marketing online. And what I've learned is that the more ads you can kind of play with and test, the faster you'll get to, success, I think, because you're just trying more things in a shorter period of time. So I'm not honestly dedicating as much time to really tweaking those ads all the time. And I think it's just, you're kind of like an ad away from hitting the one that works. So it's, the hard part is like, how much time do you want to dedicate to it? How much time can you dedicate to it? And the more time you spend playing with your ads and tweaking them, the faster you can get to a point where you're like, okay, this is what works, this is what's converting the best, and so I'm just going to keep running this ad over and over, like you said, until it doesn't work anymore. And then I'll think about changing it. And
change the verbiage. And I think maybe I know another challenge for me. I'm busy, but I'm far less busy than I was when I was operating a service-based business, right? I have room to breathe and think and everything else, and I've never had that. But a lot of my clients, if not almost all of them, whether they're getting as much business as they would like, they're very busy, right? There's always stuff that you could be doing. Right now you're sitting here doing this because you feel like, I have to do it, but there's probably 20 things waiting for you at your desk if you're lucky, right? Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to get back to a point where, whether it's help me write some copy for a landing page, right? I end up just hiring writers half the time for people because, or writing it myself because they can't do it, right? Because, if you're like in a junk removal business, the guy's out in the truck all day, last thing he wants to do is sit down and come up with, some sentences that I'm going to rewrite, but at the end of the day, I'm not intimately involved in the business. So, as a marketer, a lot of times you'll need some help. And, at least what makes your business different. Then from there, I can take that, expand upon it, and create something powerful for both Google and for people, right? So sometimes that's hard. Sometimes getting ad copy is hard. Sometimes getting, a response on X, Y, and Z is tough. So after people have spent money for a while and, they're getting decent results and they're, making some money, a lot of times it's easier for your checkup, right? Your 6-month checkup or whatever, to come in and say, okay, now that we know what this can do, now that we know what it can't do, and now that we know why some things work and some things don't, what would be some new ideas we can come up with? What are some new things that we can do to really pull these customers in? And then when they get to our page, how do we make it a no-brainer for them to fill out the form, make the phone call or whatever? Because in my business, when I ran the IT company, it used to blow my mind that people would click on my ad, which was the best, right? It was, but I thought it was the best. And then go to my landing page on my website, that was the best, because I know it was, because I obsessed over it like night and day, constantly. And why wouldn't every single person call me? Why wouldn't every single person fill out this contact form? Like, email us, right? Like, how come 100% because it was the best, right? And there's never a true answer to that, because there's always people who just won't, right? But the idea is you get it to a point where more people are clicking on your ad than anybody else, as far as you can tell. And a higher percentage of people, when they get to your landing page, are filling that out because it's just such a no-brainer. They're so compelled to contact you. They're like, this guy, I know he's a computer guy and I'm not a computer guy, but this guy knows me. He knows what I'm going through. He knows my pains. and he seems like a nice guy and they're running their company right, and if they send somebody out, I'm not going to be afraid of who's going to show up at the door, and everybody loves them because they have the most reviews in San Diego, right? Anybody who's reasonable is going to call that company unless either A, they accidentally clicked on it, which happens, right? B, they're not quite ready, or C, there's something that you can't predict that scares them off, or they're just not quite ready, you know? So as much trust as you can create on those pages and in those ads, you have the highest percentage of closing people, and that's kind of what we go for. And sometimes it takes round two. I mean, I didn't write my best ads for my company until at least a year after I was, advertising, just because.
That's what I'm hearing. Sometimes it's a year or two, and then you find some ads that just knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But you just gotta keep at it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would add, I think a lot of people, ads and this is one thing, but this is why on the other side, we have value add with K&K. Mm-hmm. Even on my Instagram page, I'm consistently putting out videos, and some people can think whatever, but so if somebody looks Chris up online, or me online, I haven't looked you up online personally, but they hit that ad and they're like, well, who the hell is this person? I want to look her up. There's videos about mortgages. There's all this stuff, and they're like, holy crap, there's a whole bunch of stuff on this person, and then if somebody goes to a competitor and they're like, I can't find one friggin' thing on this guy besides this ad, they're probably just going to go this way just because they can watch 5 videos and go, I like your personality or whatever. So I think a lot of people too is on top of these ads, what we're realizing, it's also pumping out this other content, because what I've realized, just putting these, these silly videos I put out that are educational, I try to do some fun stuff, I'm top of mind to people, even if it's my audience, even if it's small. And I get referrals now from people, and I'm like, why'd you refer me? Because I see your damn videos every day, and somebody asks me, do I know somebody? And you're like, every day I'm looking at you, it's top of mind. Yeah. And so I think with ads is being top of mind and in front of people, you get to talk to people. So what are you guys now, 6 months in, what's the focus now, Crystal? Like, where are you tweaking right now, and who are you trying to go after 6 months? Are you tweaking a little bit to say these ads are working better? What you're trying to get in the door? Who you're trying to talk to?
Who's our new customer? Who's working? Who hasn't? What's been the biggest success for you?
Well, we kind of talked about it the other day. Is that I noticed that the 3 leads that actually converted. We're oddly kind of in the very beginning. So I'm like, okay, what the heck were we doing back then in those early ads that they were converting so much? Because now, that they converted those 3 leads that actually are closed deals that are going to close. Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, let's filter out the mortgage brokers, or at least if it's a mortgage broker calling me, they know that they're calling another broker, because I've cooperated with other brokers before, but most don't.
And that's not what you want to.
It's not necessarily a focus. Yeah. So just kind of focusing back on investors, like people who already own multifamily or commercial properties that need help, or businesses that need to refinance their building. So just kind of focusing back on that and trying to push those people over to our site more. And then, like I said, I'm looking at myself going, am I not getting back to the lead fast enough? Am I not converting them well enough? So those are the things that I'm trying to look out for when I'm giving you the feedback of what to do. So. And
are we generating enough trust on the page? I mean, that's part of what we're looking at doing right now is how can we make that landing page more of a no-brainer? Sure, we have the phone number and the contact form. We have a video. We have some write-ups about it. We have some testimonials down at the bottom, and moving those elements around can get us a better response or a worse response. And so doing A/B testing now that we have some feedback, I think is important. Yep. And the fact that we have so few, it's kind of like a personal injury attorney. Some of those guys, they'll pay over hundreds of dollars per click.
They're spending $100,000 a month.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And they're getting a handful of cases, but those cases are lucrative. So
and some of those don't pay for years.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't necessarily know right off the bat.
It's a long-term bet on that.
It can be, but you with those guys, they have there's a lot more statistics. There's a lot more personal injury attorneys. People are getting hit by cars more than they're financing commercial buildings, so there's a lot more of that, right? Yeah, I know, huh? Seriously. But anyway, so there's a lot of data on that, so that you can get some early metrics before anything's closed, and determine how well your ads are doing. So with that, I think we're at a good point to go through again. and rewrite some ads and pull more out of your brain and pull more out of my brain and combine that to get to something else. And you're right. I mean, if if the mortgage guys haven't panned out, or the maybe some of the other industries that you do, maybe, for instance, multifamily is the way to go for apartment buildings, are the way to go for Google Ads. Maybe people aren't looking up, and I mean, they're looking them up, but maybe it's not exactly what we're looking for. Or maybe that they're just not a higher quality person. For maybe I don't want to say interest only people aren't high quality. I just making something up, right?
Right. As an example. Yeah.
But as an example, maybe for whatever reason, those don't translate to closed deals as well.
Right.
And so we need to sit down and figure out how many of what came in and what were they. And then we double down on those ads. We kick back for a bit and see how it goes until we can't spend any more money on what's working.
Well, and that's kind of why we also segmented it into, I think it was 7 or 8 categories that we were going to do separate landing pages for. So I would imagine that we can track all that too and see where people have been clicking the most, and kind of maybe dwindle it down to a handful of different ads that we'll run and see how those convert.
Yeah, and on my side, we see clicks and we see conversions, but we don't see closed deals. We don't see people yelling on the phone. You haven't had that, but I mean, that happens. Somebody's like, if you say cheap, instant mortgage, commercial mortgage loan, you're going to get people that you probably don't want, right?
Right.
And I'll be like, sweet, this campaign is kicking ass. It's converting like crazy.
Or if I say bad credit, no problem, or like one of those things, people do that.
And some people want that, and that's not necessarily what you want.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of piece all of that out. So you have to have a meeting of the minds and come together and compare notes, and then from there, like I said, it's refining it, sometimes scrapping it. I think in your case, we have a lot of good metrics that we'll just tweak some things.
Yeah.
But some cases, you run an ad for a month and you get a lot of stuff, and then you're like, yeah, but none of these people like it. It's like, well, maybe we should consider taking the word cheap out, right? Yeah. Because you aren't getting the people that you want. And
constant tweaking, constant.
Always.
Yeah. I think, sorry, the plane flying over. I think hopefully, by us having this conversation here today, kind of gets people understanding, this is what they're going to get from you. It's like we're just sitting here having a conversation about marketing, whether you're doing it for us now or they're doing something else. You're probably just going to be like, what are you doing? What's your results? How's it working? Are you trying to figure out, is there a way I can help to get you, more business, which means more revenue, better ROI. And then obviously, I think people realize that Crystal, you guys just started 6 months ago. This is more of a long-term play, but eventually that long-term play, if you keep at it, starts to really pay dividends. Because the cool thing about mortgages is you keep going and you keep getting, 1 or 2 deals in the hopper, 1 or 2 deals, and it starts, the momentum goes. The 1 or 2 deals start going into, going in line, they go into submitted, and you start closing 1. The next thing you know, you're closing 1 every 2 months. You're closing 1 every month, and then it's 2 every month, and this is how it works.
Well, how many investors only invest in 1 property too, right? I mean, that's kind of the name of the game is, you make that connection. Like when we were first starting out in the IT thing, my ad spend was meant to be break even because I knew that, for the most part, you don't make a whole bunch of money after you pay the guy and give the $25 discount and, on the ad spend and everything else, that you don't make a lot of money on that first call. But if you're good at what you do and you have good follow-up and you are the best in the business and you blow their hair back with awesome service, that second call is pure profit, and the third call is pure profit, and the fourth call. And the referrals profit, and all of that is profit at that point. So I think when it comes down to it, it's all advertising is a long game of some sort. Sometimes it's a lot shorter depending on what you want to do. But you always should be thinking about next year when you're doing ads. You should always be thinking about 6 months. And if you want a customer tomorrow, you might get lucky, but a lot of times it takes a little bit of time. But when you get it right, then you can just set that thing for a while and run it, and that's really where you make your money.
Yeah. So Kyle, if somebody wanted to get coffee with you and do this, how long is your typical meeting?
I would say I haven't really had, I can be long-winded sometimes, and I have I have lots of ideas, and I get excited about people's business really quickly, right? Because everything is exciting if you can see it for what it is, right? If you can see the magic of what a product is, right? What type of need it fulfills. And you know, when I was in commercial finance, it was really fascinating because I talked to tons of business owners doing different things. So I kind of get a piece of that again. So I'd say 45 minutes. So I mean, I've spent 2 hours. You know, there was somebody I met with, and they do a type of it's called emotional freedom technique, and it's like this type of tapping for people who have particular issues with things, right? Yeah. And it's something that, you know, I think a lot of people would think, you know, they may not believe that it works, but at the end of the day, the brain is just a pattern recognition machine. And so, like with anything else, I mean, you know, some people use like shock collars on dogs, and it's like whenever the dog runs past the fence, they get shocked, and pretty soon the brain, you know, kind of shocks for you, and you don't even need the collar anymore. Same type of idea. So she was really good at what she did, and people really loved her, but she was having trouble conveying that message. Yep. And so instead what you do is, you know, you sit down, I mean, I think I sat with her for probably close to 2 hours, because it was really exciting to discover like who her client was and what her client needed, and then how to connect with their client and be like, you know, listen, I know I've met so many people that are in the same spot you're in right now, and I know it's not good, right? And I know that if you don't make a change, you're going to be here forever. Now, look at all of these people who are living this life of freedom, right? The barrier between you and them is nothing. It's, you know, the cost of the consultation or the course in this case, you know, building out a video course is, you know, like, let's say it's $1,000. The cost, the barrier between it is this razor thin membrane of $1,000, and you getting past this feeling of uncomfortability and filling out this form or making this phone call. Otherwise, you're going to stew in being uncomfortable and unhappy forever, and that's all that's stopping you, right? So when you can kind of become that person and connect with that person and show them what it's like on the other side, and that you know, there's really nothing to it, that stuff's kind of fun, you know, to build that dream and craft that whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've
so.
actually done EFT.
Oh, have you? Yeah. Does it? Yeah. Did it work for you?
Not our therapist. I've done it a couple different times, and I would say that it does help. Yes.
Okay. Go. Yeah.
You hold these like little things, and they kind of tap and make these little vibrations too.
Did you tap yourself, or?
No, my therapist did it with like this little machine, and there were certain taps based on questions that he asked me. How did that make you feel? And then we would go back like a week later, and then he would say, okay, now how do you feel when I say this?
It's
or
just
that?
training the mind, like he said.
Yeah. There's something in the in like a NLP and neuro linguistic programming that therapists will use. It's kind of the same thing at the end of the day, but it's like a you know, it's like a trick almost. So essentially, if you are having somebody relive, let's say, a traumatic experience, or even better, living a moment of like freedom and happiness, and every time you do that, if you just put your finger on their knuckle, just like that, right? And you do that enough times, you can even tell them you're doing it. That at some point when the therapist or, you know, whoever it is wants them to feel that feeling, they'll put their finger on their knuckle or their hand on that knuckle, and the brain automatically associates that stuff. So yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, so coming up with her way of selling it, because she's a business owner, was really fun and fascinating. So sometimes like that, I'll spend 2 hours, and even though it's not profitable for me at all, part of what I'm doing is I want to have fun and I want to enjoy it.
About what you do.
I really am. Like, I mean, I could probably, if I was independently wealthy, this is exactly, I think, what I do, because it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I meet so many great people, and they have so many cool business ideas, and there's just this barrier between, like, you know, who their customer really is and what their product really is that they're selling. And once they find that out, that it's not this, you know, a bunch of threads woven together to cover your nakedness, right? Or even a cool looking suit or an awesome car, but it's something else. When you can discover that, you watch these people who started this business, like, open their eyes and see their own business in a different way. And that's really cool for me. And like, as far as I'm concerned, although I do run a business, that's payment also, you know?
Yeah, and I think marketing, like you said, is just showcasing what you're great at or your product is. And some people are great at making a product or making a suit or doing the service, but they can't convey that message and showcase that.
Well, because
to
we're
the
stuck
public.
in our business. So,
Yeah.
like we talked about that with Billie Jean, is like you're in the technical side of your business. You're like into all the details when there's like a lay person out there that like you kind of almost have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's just now discovering it and learning about it, rather than getting all technical and saying all these difficult to understand words or the language that you talk in, and kind of just get down there. But
So, Kyle, to wrap up, if somebody wants to have coffee with you, where's the best place to find you?
So you can contact me through letsgetclicks.com. You can go to facebook.com/getclicks. Somebody's got Let's Get Clicks. It hurts. And then, or Instagram, or through here, or just look up Kyle Hanson. There's not very many of us, so it's an easy way to do it.
And then you can, if you ever see anybody with a vanity plate that says "Yay, Kyle,"
That's me.
That's him.
Run them down on the freeway.
Sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
So, guys, to wrap up today, we wanted to just meet with Kyle because obviously we're working on marketing, and I think everybody that's a business owner or whatever you're selling or doing, I think you're realizing that there's a lot of people around you that are doing really well on whether using social, the internet, and a lot of people have been doing it for a long, long time, but this shift is really happening, and the younger generation that's coming up is, they're really finding more. You can get right in front, you can put yourself right in front of somebody on their phone, on their laptop, on their iPad. And the way to do that is, if you're not good at it, there's people like Kyle that can meet with you and show you how to get your message out. And basically, at the end of the day, you're just getting more attention on you, on your business, which should result in more customers, more money, and more profit in your pocket. And that's really what we're ultimately here, doing. That's what we're all working on.
All right.
Yeah, thanks,
Cool.
Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.